Sahana vavatu Sahanau bhunaktu Sahaviryam karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Lord protect us. May He nourish us. May we acquire the capacity to study and understand the scriptures. May our study be brilliant, and may we not cavil at each other. Om, peace, peace, peace unto us all. Dear brothers and sisters, loving Sai Ram to all of you. We welcome all of you for the online satsang of the Sri Sathya Sai Baba Center of Arcadia. So we are continuing our study circle on Unity is Divinity. And I think probably some of you may have hard copies, and all of you should receive the in the emails the link for the study guides, which you can download or you can look at it. And also we are starting today on page 64. So I will try to briefly summarize what we discussed last week for the sake of continuity. Swami was talking about science and spirituality. Swami said, where science ends, spirituality begins. Even the great scientists recognize that. And Swami has nicely said there is a gulf of difference how a scientist looks at something versus a saint or a sage looks at it. So Swami said scientist is like a semicircle, whereas what sages look is like a full circle. And he gave the nice words from the Upanishads, Purnamadah Purnamadachyate. So everything is full. Even from the full you take, still the full remains. That is the beautiful words from the Upanishads. Here also another way Swami said is, science is split of love, whereas spirituality is spirit of love. And to give an example, like for example, you see water, a scientist would analyze, this is H2O, 3 atoms of hydrogen, 1 atom of oxygen, H2O. Whereas a saint or a spiritual seeker interested, how can I supply this water to somebody who is thirsty? That is what it is. There is this, that is the spirit of love, not in the mechanism or the formula of water, but how can I supply that water to the thirsty? And that is why Swami has all those projects supplying to millions of needy people the water, and which was also now done around the world in Africa, Latin America, and all those places. So this is one thing he talked about. Then last week we ended, we should always be happy and cheerful. So that should be by itself a spiritual practice. Not easy sometimes when you are going through physical pain or mental pain, but you can make it by itself like abhyas yoga, constant practice. Some people I can see even before you talk, they always will be smiling and enthusiastic, giggling. And some people, even the best situation, they will be morose, depressed, like Swami says, long face, castor oil face, he used to call. So try to develop that cheerful attitude. Be happy. But for that, how to do that? Swami says, be in the company of God. He says, like a shadow follows somebody. If you are in the company of God, happiness automatically follows. Real great spiritual seekers are happy. Like I heard of a yogi in Mumbai, it's called laughing yogi. Whenever you go to what all he does, ha ha ha, it goes on, and it is like contagious. Everybody goes ha ha ha. So it's showing that this joyfulness is also contagious, and same thing with the moroseness and sadness. So for this, Swami gave a good company of God. So sometimes you say this God is abstract, nirguna, nirakara. How can he be on the company of God? That is why beautifully Sri Ramakrishna said three things: Bhagavan, Bhakta and Bhagavatam. They are not separate. So Bhagavan, if you cannot see, you can see the Bhakta, devotee. And Bhagavatam is scriptures which talk about his leelas. So if you really are not in that stage where your mind goes away, you can't be in the company of thinking about meditating on God, next best is be in the company of holy people, saints, because that is what I said, famous sloka of Adi Shankara, Satsangatve Nisangatvam. Company of the holy takes you detachment. With the detachment, you get rid of the delusion. With delusion, when you get rid of, you will have steady mind, and that is nothing but Jivan Mukti. So this satsang is very, very, very important. That is why we have instances in the in our epics, like Shabari, the great saintly lady. She was not well versed in Vedas, scriptures. She was just an ordinary woman working, but she became the great saint. With one darshan of Rama, she was liberated, because she was in the company of those holy people, serving them, taking care of them. So she got all those, imbibed the qualities, and she always was thinking of Rama. When is he going to come? When is he going to come? Always absorbed in the thought of Rama. But she was not scholarly. How she became in touch with the holy people, she became the great saint, and everybody remembers. Same thing with Ratnakara. You know, he is the great robber, and he was bad, but once Narada, he came in touch with Narada, he became the first Adi Kavi, first Kavi, that is Valmiki, who wrote the Srimad Ramayana. So just touch of that. Even Kalidasa, who wrote so many great works, so he was also my mother's blessings, Kali. So he was like a shepherd boy, doesn't know anything even, so unlettered, and so he becomes the greatest poet of all times, well known for his works. So that is what the company of the holy people. Swami gave a very simple example. You take the cloth, you think you don't have anything else, but nowadays people have bags. You put some nice pakoda or something in that, and you give it to your friend, and after that pakoda is given, but still this thing will smell of pakoda, right? It is because in contact. And same thing, you wrapped jasmine flowers in this, and put the jasmine flowers, and after that you gave it, and it smells of jasmine. So it is by itself, it doesn't have, because of the association what we have. That is why very important in the beginning you be associated with good people. And another beautiful example Swami said is, like in the old days in India, they have carts. Sometimes in the carts they have bed bugs. So people, because there are bed bugs, it is very, they can bite you and all that. So people beat it up, like in old tradition. In the nowadays that thing is not there. They beat up the cart so that they die. So poor cart, it didn't do anything, because of the company of the bed bug, it gets the beatings. So bad company is bad, good company is the one which you should always. Swami says we can even pay money and buy the good company, and pay money and get rid of the bad company. So both are equally important. He gave the example of dust. Dust doesn't have legs, right? Doesn't have wings. But in the company of water, when the water falls, dust will go down. And in the company of air, it goes up. So in the company of good people, you go up. In the company of the bad company, you go down. So that is why always seek the company of the holy, because they think about God, they talk about God, they serve God. Actually, that itself is a spiritual practice. One great saint named Kulshekhar Alvar, he was a great king, but he became at the end, those days they used to become a saint. He was a Vaishnava saint, great Alvar, Kulshekhar Alvar. He wrote a beautiful set of verses called Mukundamala. People who want to know, you should read that. There he tells one beautiful thing. He prays to Lord Krishna, Majjanmanah phalamidam madhukaita bhare mat prathaniya mad anugraha yesha yeva. That means, Lord, I am praying to you just by your grace. What I am praying? Tvad bhrutya bhrutya paricharaka bhrutya bhrutya bhrutyasya bhrutya mam smara lokanatha. I want to be the servant of the servant of the servant of your devotee. That means whenever we serve, anybody goes to God, but particularly when you are serving a devotee, there is no difference between God and devotee. Just that's why he prays, Lord, give me the opportunity to be servant of the servant of the servant. So whenever we do anything, so that automatically goes to God. So that is the opportunity we make use of the holy company. In the holy company, sometimes have people not available. Now, particularly the COVID, you have this physical distancing, this thing, I have to stay away. The next best is holy books. When you read the holy books like Bhagavatam, Ramayanam, or Gita, Upanishads, then you are company of the holy people too, because these are all the revelations of great saints. So when you read them, you are in the thoughts of that. That is another way to be in the company of the holy. Another is visiting holy places. When you go to a temple, when you go to a church, when you go to pilgrimages places like Kashi or Jerusalem. So all these places, people over thousands of years have thought about God. So those places also have vibrations. So there is also visiting holy places. So somehow or other, this will give you company of God. Then you will be usually in tune with God, and that will make us happy. So that is what we talked about. So to be happy, be in the company of God, because happiness will follow us like a shadow. And for that, the satsang, holy company, either the great avatars, which is the best, if you don't have saints, if not, holy books and holy places and even holy things. If you have a rosary, you like to go on, repeat the name. If you have a knife, you want to play with the knife or something, you scribble. So whatever, even objects have their own vibrations. So try to have the holy things. That is why our people emphasized even the leaves, like tulasi leaf, that bilwa leaf, that even the trees, they also have special vibrations. Everything in the universe has vibrations. So try to be associated with something that has a good vibrations. So that is where we stopped. We'll start now on page 64.
Thank you, Dr. Reddy. Sairam, brothers and sisters. We are starting on page 64 from the top. Today, man is in search of happiness and in the process is becoming a slave to happiness. This is not correct. In fact, happiness should become a slave to you, for you are verily the embodiment of the divine Atma. Believe it or not, I am always blissful. You can also experience such a state of bliss. You should not go in search of happiness. Instead, happiness should follow you wherever you go. Hanuman was a great hero in the episode of Ramayana. He was courageous, mighty, and invincible. He possessed good qualities of character and peace. He was always happy and cheerful, chanting the divine name of Rama. You should also develop such noble qualities. First and foremost, you should become a human being in the true sense. You should develop kindness towards all. Only then do you deserve to be identified as belonging to mankind. Embodiments of love. You are acquiring a high level of worldly education. You are reading several great books. You are acquiring great powers. But all these are ephemeral and evanescent. Therefore, always keep your thoughts steadily fixed on the divine power that fills your heart with bliss. The divine power is infinite. The more you contemplate on the divine, the more and more the bliss gets multiplied. When such an infinite divine power is within your own self, why should you be exposed to difficulties? Should we stop here?
Yeah.
So we are all in search of happiness, as Swami says, but we are becoming a slave to it. The meaning, as I understand, is that we are trying to become happy by means which are external to us, like money, power, authority, things like that, things which are of a worldly nature. But the main message Swami is giving in this one is that we are actually Satchidananda. We are Ananda is within us. We are the embodiment. This is why he addresses us as embodiments. Divatma Sarupala. We are embodiments of the divine Atma, which is love, bliss, happiness. So he's saying, don't go searching for it. He gave an example in one divine discourse that of a person who has his glass on top of his head and he's asking everybody, have you seen my glasses? He said, it's inside you, within you. So you should not become a slave to it, but connect with God, and then the happiness will be yours. One example was Hanuman. He was a true person because of human values. He had all the values. He practiced truth, right conduct, love, and peace, happiness. Everything was within him. He says that you should follow that example, because if a person does not have human values, Swami says he cannot be called human. The mark of humanity is possession of human values. This discourse is addressing students mainly, and he's telling them that worldly education is good because it helps you get a living and you have to acquire some amount of resources, etc. And you're reading all these good books, but be aware that the real goodness is inside you. So he's saying that if you contemplate on the divine, then you'll get more and more blissful. This is what he calls integral education, both outside and inside. And he's saying focus on the infinite power of the Lord, and that will help us overcome all obstacles, not just temporal ones, all obstacles, and we can be happy throughout. Sairam.
Sairam. So that is why the whole thing is to be blissful, is to more and more think about God. As I said, we already know how to think more about God. Repeat His name. Just Om Sri Sai Ram Nama Japam. Or you sing the bhajans. Some people just sing like Mirabai, Tyagaraja, Surdas, all these. Just by singing the bhajan, kirtans, they attain the highest. Or the path of meditation, the dhyana, contemplative life, like Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi or Nisargadat Maharaj, you can do. Or just listening to the stories, that is the easiest leelas, because always stories everybody likes. Just listening, like Parichit did, and then I said last time Katwanga. There are many people just by listening to the stories itself to be easily in tune with God. That is why Hanuman, Swami gave so much importance. There is a beautiful, he says, Yatra Yatra Raghunatha Kirtanam Tatra Tatra Kutamasta Kanjalim Bashpavari Paripurna Lochanam Marutim Namata Rakshasantakam. He says, wherever the glories of the Lord are sung, Rama's glories, he says, went with this thing with full of tears, joyful tears, blissful tears in his eyes. He will be listening and he will be in bliss. Because that is why we also talked about how Adi Shankara said, Nandati, Nandati, Nandatyeva. The person who is really in tune with God is always blissful. That is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, people who don't know, the greatest saint of Bengal and are considered actually an avatar of Radha and Krishna. So he used to dance with joy. People say almost like bliss is coming out of the pores of his hairs. That much joy. He used to dance, and people around with him also dance with him. That is how the Hare Krishna movement also came. So a lot of these people, like even Shridi Sacharita, you read, there's one, not Hemat Pant, Malsapati was with him. Whenever Baba was going in a procession, he used to dance. So that gives that thing. That is why God, two things, singing and dancing. That is why Nataraja, we relate to that. So you become so happy to express the joy through the dance. And here, Hanuman has the greatest example. We already many times talked why Swami gave so much importance of Hanuman's statue being the highest in that Hillview Stadium than any other things, even more than Lord Shiva, Jesus, and Shirdi Baba and all that. Because the devotee who is absorbed in God, he becomes like God. Here, Swami says why he was so happy. Here I will tell you 6 qualities we chant Hanuman Chalusa. People remember, if you want to be a good devotee, these 6. Vidyavan, Guni Ati Chatur, Ramakaja Karive Ko Atur, Prabhu Charitra Sunive Ko Rasiya, Rama Lakhana Sita Manabasya. These are the 6 qualities we all develop, will become Hanuman. Vidyavan means he is very well educated. What educated? Not just secular, like we get a MD or we get a PhD, MS, MA, not that. He was all-rounder. He was great in the arts. He was the greatest musician he could know. He knew the scriptures, and he was the greatest powerful guy who could go across that ocean, 100 yojanas, just like that. So he is very much highly accomplished. So not only scholar in the material sciences, but in spiritual sciences. Guni, but some people, as I said, they are highly educated, but no character. But he has character, that is most important. Swami says education without character is not only useless, but positively dangerous, he says. So because people who have education but they have no character, they can do more harm than people without any education. So Guni has noble character. If you read the how when he goes to in search of Mother Sita, so many temptations he had to be comfortable, and then people have temptation and sees certain sites in Sri Lanka which could distract, but he was very stable. That's character. At the same time, Ati Chatura, that means he is very smart. He knows when to say what. That is what it is. I think this story also I shared, that when this Rama was building the bridge, they were building the bridge. Everybody was doing their best. And so the squirrels, they could not lift the mountains, and like the monkeys did. They were rolling in the sand and going and putting that on the bridge. Whatever, that's why I say we call that just whatever you can do, God appreciate. That is why Lord Rama took the squirrel and just stroked it with so much love. That is why we think those 3 marks on the squirrel is because of the blessings of Lord Rama. So this happened. So they were putting the stones and they were all floating because of a special blessing given to a monkey. So then this Lord Rama, it's all a divine drama, Leela. He was going quietly and he also wanted to see what happens, and he put the big boulder stone in the ocean and it sank. So it looked like he was, all these people put their floating, but he put it, it sank. So he was thinking, and just he acted as if, always Hanuman follows him like a shadow, because shadow of God. So he looked around and then Hanuman was there. So he asked Hanuman, what happened? Because other people put it is floating, but he put it sank. Because then probably a lot of us would say, oh, because Swami, your name is more powerful than you. Because they put Rama and then they put the attachment and then they were floating. Whereas he didn't that. But he is smart. He said, Swami, when the stone was in your hand, it was very happy. Once you dropped it, it got depressed, sad, and it sank. So that is called Ati Chatura, Samayaspurti, thinking about it, because that is also because he is in tune with God. And 4th quality is Ramakaja Karive Ko Atura, always very eager, passionate to do Rama's work. That's why he said, Vibhishana, he told him, you repeat his name, but you don't do his work. So always not only doing japa, but we should always be interested to participate in Swami's mission. How can we share his love? How can we share his message? How can we do more of his work? Always Ramakaja Kariveko Atura, that means he's always anxious. How can I do more? How can I do more? That kind of passion one should have if you want to close to God. Prabhu Charitra Sunive Korasya. He always loves to hear the story of Prabhu Charitra, Rama Charitra. He always wants to hear the Rama Leelas. Rama Lakhana Sita Manabasya, and always install Rama in his heart, Lakshmana and Sita. That means always in meditation. That is why at the end, during the time of coronation of Rama, he could even open his chest and see the whole Mother Rama, Lakshmana and Sita were installed in his heart. In every hair was repeating the Rama's name. That is why that kind of qualities if we develop, then we will be not only near to God, will be dear to God. That is why these are the important thing about Hanuman, because he is the exemplary devotee, and he is worshipped himself like the god by many people. So these are the wanted share.
Today, our old students have assembled here. They are undertaking several types of service activities in various parts of the country and even abroad. They are deriving great pleasure out of this service activity. In my opinion, they should confine themselves to their own areas and render service to society within their means. It is neither good nor necessary to associate with others in their service activities, which will turn it into business. As far as possible, they should undertake such activities in their respective villages and give them happiness. In rural areas, there is a vast scope for different service activities. A few decades ago, some people invited me to shift to bigger cities like Mysore, saying that they would provide a big palace for me. But as for me, I don't need palaces. I must stay in this small village. I have not given up my place of birth. In such place alone, mighty tasks need to be accomplished. So I refused to move from Puttaparthi, which was then a remote village with no modern facilities. In those days, if one were to visit Puttaparthi, one had to alight from the train at Penukonda, which was the nearest railhead, and then travel to this place in a bullock cart. Such were the conveyances in those days. But now one can straightaway reach Puttaparthi comfortably by air. One had to go to Anantapur by bus in those days for availing oneself of medical services. Now we have a super specialty hospital right at our doorstep. Thus, all modern conveniences and facilities are now available in this village of Puttaparthi. Therefore, there is no better place than a village to live in. The villages are the most valuable assets of a nation. If you serve the villages properly, nothing could be greater service than that. Grama Seva is Rama Seva. Selfless service to the villages is selfless service to Rama, God. Should we stop here?
Yeah.
So here Swami is reminding us of a very important point that everybody forgets while we are doing service, which is that service is not for show. It's our way of expressing love. It's love in action, Swami says. So it is important to do it where it is more appropriate and where you belong. A lot of people come to Puttaparthi, they go to India to do service thinking there is something special there. Swami is reminding us God is everywhere and God resides in all hearts. Therefore, most good you can do are service the needy people in your own place, wherever you are. And do not associate with others. Again, this is another important point. Some people think that we can multiply our results and we can do more and more, and it turns into a business. And Swami is reminding us that is not the purpose. The spiritual purpose of service is to remove our inner 6 enemies and help us see God. That is the main purpose. He says that it is not our purpose to do as much as possible with as much money as we can get. Whatever money we have means we do service with a clean mind, loving mind, and offer it to Him. That is what He appreciates most. And he says the difference between villages and in different nations is that in villages people are more needy, they are more simple, and they are more humble, they are more tuned to God. He said that is where you can do the most good, serving the villagers. And Grama Seva is Rama Seva. So the service to man is service to God. Sai-Ram.
Yeah, so that is why these are the formulas we should remember. Naraseva is Narayana Seva, or Manava Seva is Madhava Seva. And here Swami says beautifully, this is all like, we can easily remember. Grama Seva is Rama Seva. Grama is villages Seva. Because I remember this happened that time, 2003, my nephew who went college there, my brother's son, he studied there. So the alumni meet in the January time. Every year now they meet except this year because of COVID. So and then they go there and offer their love for Swami through singing bhajans, and they go to the villages around the Puttaparthi to serve because they think they want to express gratitude that time, and also they had some money to give a check to Swami to help those people. Swami was, instead of being happy, he scolded them. He said, you are trying to show here you do your spiritual practice. You have enough opportunities to do service in your own countries. That is why even here in downtown Los Angeles, in Africa, if you see, your tears will come to your eyes. In some places like Madagascar, in Benin, the children are eating sand to just suppress the hunger, and then leaves, so pathetic. So there is so much more need than even someplace in India, in countries like Africa, in South America. So that is why we have been doing service in all these countries. Almost for 11 countries in Africa, we have supplied about 22 containers, which are contain each one 1 ton of food, so that it is still a fraction, but still whatever we can do, we have been doing. So that is what Swami says, you should try to do service where there is a need, so not where because of some special place, because whole Vishwamanta Vibhuni Mandiram, Swami says, the whole universe is his temple. So in which case, everywhere, wherever there is a need, and they are all his children, we need to do that. So there is, and also here, last time we said any interactive, any questions we have, and then please share that questions, and then we will try to answer that. You said you had a question, forgot that question.
Yes, Dr. Reddy, there was a question from last time. Should we take it now?
Yeah, so just anything pending, so that we don't want to feel let down anybody.
Okay.
Anytime, any questions, if we cannot answer because of the lack of time, we will try to do that next time. So, but just don't hesitate. And even online, we want to have it more interactive. People should be able to raise your hands and ask questions, and also send the questions. So just we want it to be more interactive, like the good old days, but so as much as we can, we try to replicate.
So this question came last time, and I rephrased it to be more precise. Why are people today looking for perfection in others rather than leading a good life with loving relations?
So that is unfortunately which is a fact of life. Always people are more interested in correcting other people. Hey, you didn't do that, and you didn't do that. But for a spiritual seeker, it is very, very important. Only thing we are interested is, how do I get better? How do our own self-transformation? We need to make it very clear. We should know the goal. Goal is to realize our divinity. And how do we do that? By our transformation, not by transforming others. Only the job of transforming others, let me tell you, is left to God. You can pray for them. Let me guarantee, they said nobody can change others, including your spouse, your children, our friends, because each one their own vasanas and attitude you cannot change. You can be a good example, but you can pray if it is a challenging situation. Don't try to change others. First, you need to make the spiritual formula and try to change oneself. Third thing is, some people try to give always advice. Yeah, you should do that, you should do that, because advice is free. Swami Shivananda said, the best way to be peaceful and happy is don't give advice to others. Even if you ask, you don't need to, but if they ask, you can. But otherwise, unsolicited advice, people, oh, do this, you will get better. Particularly if it's sickness, they will give 100 advices, people will get confused. So don't give too much advice. Focus on one's own transformation. Because I can give you an example. I'm a diabetologist. I see lots of patients with diabetes. So husband and wife, sometimes they both have diabetes. Sometimes 3 people, husband, wife, and their son or daughter. They all come together. So one deal. So then their sugars are one, wife complains, my husband doesn't eat properly, doesn't take care of himself. Actually, her sugar is worse than him, but she is more interested. I said, it doesn't mind. And same thing then, the son says, my mother and father, they don't take care of this. This guy didn't even come for checkup for a few months. I said, when did you have last checkup? So always, I said, I told him nicely, if she eats bad, she will suffer. Her sugar will be high, she will have complication. He eats bad, so you are interested in the other person, not your own problem. Same spirituality, but who pays for complications? Your sugar is high, blood pressure, you will pay for it, not the others. So similarly, in spirituality, we should see how can we better, how can we be more loving, more compassionate, less, no anger, no jealousy, no hatred. So each one's self-audit is more important, but we want to audit other people, not self-audit. So that is auditors, that is for auditors' job, to audit others' accounts, other people. But we need to do the self-audit. Coming back to this, anybody who focus on improving others, they are mistaken path. So don't try to do that. Be a good example. If they ask advice, you can give. But unsolicited advice is not needed. Don't try to improvise. Leave it to God. Pray for them. If somebody is wrong direction, pray, Lord, please correct them. So there's that nice bhajan Gandhiji used to say, Raghupati Raghava, Sabko Sanmati De Bhagavan. Give good things for everybody. So we need to just pray for others, but don't think you can transform and change others. It is one of the most impossible to why to do that. And finally, it doesn't matter. The most important we should remember is, as a seeker, Sri Ramakrishna, who am I, who is God, and how can I improve my relation with Him? So anything which makes us love God more, that is all positive. Anything which takes us away from God, which comes like an obstacle, which is not whether thinking about other people or thinking about other places, anything which is, that is all an obstacle. So we should say every time any thought comes, any action comes, is it taking me closer to God or is it taking me away from God? Just we need to go on analyzing. Then more and more we do, then more and more we'll be absorbed in the good thoughts and divine thoughts. So that is the answer. So let everybody, that is the problem. Most of the world is like that always, as they say, point fingers at the others. Swami says 3 fingers are pointing towards you. Like Jesus said, look at the, don't look at the speck in the other people's eye, look at the beam in your own eye. You have much more faults, but the human nature is, and Swami in Telugu beautifully said, kukkalo cheppulu vetukunu, nichudu tappulu vetukunu. That means always in India, the dog goes around in such a shoes, it appears. But bad man, he always, but all he is interested in looking at the faults of others. So let us just focus on the good. There is a whole secret, positive thoughts, divine thoughts, and not finding faults in others. Okay, Sai Ram.